My parents didn't just serve roast beef that night, they served me legal papers. Right there at the dinner table under candlelight, they announced my sister Maddie would take over my clinic and claim 25% of the profit. Everyone waited for me to crumble. Instead, I set down my glass, unlocked my briefcase, and slid a single page across the china. Clause 4.3. The one line that froze my father's smile mid-breath. He didn't know I'd been preparing for this moment longer than he could imagine. No one at that table guessed what else I had tucked inside that case. Would you have fought them then, or waited? Comment your take and subscribe for the full story. I didn't become invisible overnight. It happened little by little in the small rooms of our house, in the way my parents' eyes slid past me toward my sister. When I was 13, I woke up on my birthday to a single card propped against my cereal bowl. The handwriting was my mother's neat and careful, "Happy birthday, sweet girl." I swallowed my disappointment, telling myself it was enough. 2 weeks later, Maddie turned 10. Out in the driveway, a teal scooter waited, ribbons fluttering from the handlebars, a bow nearly as big as her head. Dad clapped. Mom cried, and I snapped the photos. The lens fogged slightly from my breath, and no one noticed I wasn't smiling. I wanted a bike too, but Mom later said, "You were always the practical one, Elena. Books made you happy. Books did keep me company, but that wasn't the same thing as being seen. At school, I won spelling bees, math competitions, little things that earned certificates. They ended up shoved in the kitchen drawer with appliance manuals. Meanwhile, Maddie's finger paintings lived framed in the hallway. I told myself it didn't matter, but I can still remember the sharp smell of lemon cleaner under my nose as I stood on tiptoe, dusting my sister's artwork while my own medals gathered dust in a shoebox. Years later, when high school graduation came, I was valedictorian. I poured my heart into that speech. I stood at the podium, trembling in my gown, scanning the auditorium for their faces. Empty seats stared back at me. They slid into the back row as I was sitting down again, apologizing with hushed voices. "Traffic was terrible," Mom whispered. "But don't forget we have Maddie's recital tonight. We can't be late." That night, while Maddie pirouetted across the stage, I sat in the second row clapping until my palms stung, wondering if anyone had heard my speech at all. College was no easier. I picked physical therapy because I wanted to help people move again, to restore dignity to those who had lost it. My parents said, "That sounds like a safe career, but you'll probably marry a doctor someday anyway." Safe. Marry. They never asked why I chose it. Never asked what it meant to me. Money was tight. I worked double shifts at the hospital cafeteria, serving trays of mystery meat, the scent of grease clinging to my hair. At night, I collapsed onto my dorm mattress with ramen noodles cooling on the desk, textbooks spread open like broken wings. My student loans loomed over me, numbers so large I couldn't say them out loud without choking. I still sent Maddie money when she called, though. She was a freshman then, struggling with rent, and I couldn't stand to hear the wobble in her voice. I wired her $100 here, $200 there while I skipped meals. She posted pictures of brunches with friends, plates stacked with pancakes. I didn't comment. The final year of my DPT program nearly broke me. My clinical rotations ran 14 hours, my hands trembling from fatigue as I guided stroke patients through exercises. At night, I sat on the hospital floor charting notes until my vision blurred. I started keeping a toothbrush in my backpack because I was more likely to crash in the staff lounge than in my own apartment. When graduation day came, I stood in line, cap balanced awkwardly, robe wrinkled from my locker. My family arrived, of course. But when the time came for photos, Maddie slipped the cap onto her head and Dad snapped picture after picture of her calling out, "That's perfect, sweetheart." I stood there holding my diploma invisible in my own robe. I told myself to be strong, that once I had my license and my own clinic, they would finally see me. The years after were grueling. No one hands you a business. I begged banks for loans, sat in sterile offices, with men in suits tapping their pens, hearing no after no. Without a cosigner, they said, "We can't help you." My parents refused telling me they were saving for Maddie's new car because she needs reliable transportation for her job hunt, so I kept working. I slept on treatment tables in borrowed office space, my breath fogging the vinyl in the cold nights. The janitor found me once at dawn, laptop open, spreadsheets glowing on the screen, student loan notices scattered like confetti. He said nothing, just set a cup of coffee by my hand and left. 2 years later, I finally opened Renew Motion Therapy, 3 rooms peeling paint secondhand equipment, but it was mine. On opening day, Mom and Dad breezed in wearing matching tan coats, Maddie trailing behind with her phone raised for selfies. "Looks nice," Mom said, checking her watch. "Like a real doctor's office." Dad adjusted the frames on the wall. "Just remember, it's always about people, not degrees." They stayed 15 minutes before leaving for Maddie's bridal shower. I swallowed it, smiled, thanked them for coming. When Maddie offered to help at the front desk one summer, I was grateful. Maybe this was her way of supporting me. But within weeks, chaos bloomed. Patients called furious about canceled appointments. Insurance claims bounced back with errors. I stayed until midnight combing through files stuffed in drawers, the smell of stale takeout and highlighter ink filling my office. When I confronted her, she shrugged. It was boring paperwork. Besides, they're old. What else do they have to do? The damage was mine to repair. I apologized to every patient, personally sent handwritten notes, offered free sessions. My reputation teetered on the edge of collapse, but somehow I held it together. Then came the insurance battle. Blue Shield had rejected 3 months of claims. I sat across from their representative, a woman with sharp eyes, already reaching for the rejection stamp. My hands shook as I slid a folder across the desk. Inside were meticulously cross-referenced protocols I'd created after nights of combing through manuals. She raised an eyebrow. "You did this yourself?" I nodded. Silence stretched, broken only by the hum of the fluorescent lights. Finally, she said, "Most providers give up. We'll approve." That month, for the first time, the clinic turned a profit. I sat alone in the dark office, staring at the numbers on my screen until they blurred. No one was there to celebrate with me, but I felt something shift inside. My invisibility had hardened into steel. Still, some nights I wondered, would things ever change? Would my parents ever see me not as a safety net, not as the shadow beside Maddie, but as someone who had built something from nothing? I didn't know the answer then. I didn't know that everything would come to a head over dinner with a manila folder slipped under a napkin and my father's steady voice rehearsing lines he thought would break me. The first clue came not from my parents, but from Facebook. I was sipping coffee between patients when a notification popped up. A friend had tagged me in a post my mother had written, "So proud of our family business, Renew Motion Therapy is thriving." She had attached a picture from my clinic's opening day, her arm around me, but the caption made it sound as if the clinic belonged to all of us. My stomach clenched. Comments rolled in beneath it. "The Carters are such a strong family team. I knew it was a family project. I didn't correct it, not yet. Instead, I took a screenshot. Then I printed it, timestamp and all, and slid it into a folder in my desk. The folder grew quickly. 2 weeks later, Dr. Whitmore, a colleague, mentioned in passing that my father had called him. He said he was looking for partnership opportunities for the clinic. Whitmore explained casual, as if it were normal. I told him I thought you already had everything under control. I forced a smile. Inside my stomach burned. My father was already fishing in my professional waters. That night, I drafted a short email to Whitmore thanking him for the heads up. Then I forwarded the message to myself, archived it, and printed a copy for the folder. Soon after, Julian, my clinic manager, slipped into my office, closing the door behind him. He lowered his voice. "Elena, did you know your sister tried to pitch herself as our new operations head? To one of the suppliers, he handed me a business card the rep had given him Maddie's scrawled number on the back. I stared at it for a long time. Did they take her seriously? Not really. But it raised eyebrows. I added the card to my folder. The folder became a portfolio. Patient complaints from the summer, Maddie helped at the front desk, scheduling errors, unauthorized discounts, billing mistakes. I organized them by date, binding them neatly. My accountant prepared a report itemizing $42,000 worth of free treatments given to family members over 3 years. Dad's rotator cuff, Mom's heel pain, Maddie's endless massages before vacations. I highlighted totals in yellow, each number like a bruise on the page. Then came the discovery that nearly made my hands shake too hard to hold the paper. Julian called me into his office, face grim. "Did you apply for a microloan in the clinic's name?" I froze. No. He slid a printed statement across his desk. There it was, a payday-style loan, small but under Renew Motion Therapy, signed in handwriting I knew too well. Maddie. I felt heat rush to my face, rage mixing with fear. If I hadn't caught it, it could have triggered an audit, maybe even jeopardized our license. I added it to the portfolio. Piece by piece, I built my case. Sometimes I lay awake at night, the folder on the chair beside my bed, its weight like a sentry guarding me. My mind replayed memories of being overlooked, but now they connected like dominoes leading here. Every card, every screenshot, every signed form, it wasn't paranoia. It was proof. Still, part of me wanted to believe it wasn't real, that maybe Mom's post was just sloppy wording Dad's calls, just clumsy pride, Maddie's loan just a mistake. But deep down, I knew. These weren't accidents. They were laying groundwork, rewriting history until my clinic was no longer mine. The tipping point came when I signed the management services agreement with Colorado Health Partners. I'd negotiated hard for weeks, my pen scratching over clauses in late-night calls with attorneys. Clause 4.3 was the one that mattered most. No family members may be employed in management positions without unanimous board approval. I printed 3 copies, highlighted the section, and slid them into protective sleeves. That clause wasn't just ink, it was armor. I hid 1 copy in my office, safe. Another I placed in my briefcase. The third went into a sealed envelope with my lawyer's card paper-clipped to the front. Confront now or wait. The question haunted me daily. There were moments I almost snapped, like when Mom breezed into the clinic unannounced, leaving a note on Julian's desk. "We need to discuss senior discounts, call me." Or when Maddie cornered me after a family barbecue, chirping, "When I redecorate your office, I'm thinking white marble at the front desk. Super chic." Each time I bit back the urge to explode. Instead, I smiled thinly, filed away the memory, and waited. Because I knew one outburst wouldn't protect me. Only preparation would. And I was prepared. By the time that Sunday dinner rolled around, the one with the manila folder hidden under my father's napkin, my briefcase was already packed. Proof in every form. Screenshots, reports, contracts. I was ready for them. What they didn't know was that I'd been watching, documenting quietly, turning their attempts at control into my own arsenal. By the time the evidence filled an entire portfolio, I realized gathering proof wasn't enough. I needed a plan, one that wouldn't just defend me, but end the constant encroachment once and for all. The first step was legal. I booked a quiet meeting with my attorney, a sharp woman named Patel who never wasted words. I spread my papers across her oak desk, the fluorescent lights above humming. "Can I use this?" I asked, sliding her the screenshots, the loan statement, the clause highlighted in neon yellow. She scanned each page, expression flat. Finally, she tapped her pen against clause 4.3. "This is airtight. No court would allow family interference now. As long as you present it clearly, you're protected." Protected. The word sank into me like a stone, finding its place. Next came logistics. I bought a leather portfolio expensive enough to look intentional, sturdy enough to carry weight. Into it went copies of everything: Mom's Facebook post, Dad's calls, Maddie's errors, the accountant's report, the microloan. Each was placed in plastic sleeves, color-coded tabs peeking like sharp little teeth. But one folder wasn't enough. I needed backups. I uploaded digital copies to a secure drive. Printed duplicates sealed in envelopes were stored with Patel, and one slim USB silver, no bigger than my thumb, slipped into a hidden pocket of my briefcase. If they tried to deny or destroy, I'd still have proof. Then I turned to my allies. Julian agreed to stand by as witness if needed. I'll confirm the loan attempt, he said, sliding his glasses up his nose, and the supplier call. I kept records. Nora, my old mentor, listened quietly over coffee, her wrinkled hands folded on the table. "You've carried this burden alone long enough, Elena," she said. "This isn't about revenge, it's about truth. Don't let them gaslight you again." Her words steadied me more than she knew. Finally, I considered the stage. Home turf was dangerous. At my parents' table, they controlled the narrative. But a neutral ground, that was different. When Mom invited me to another family dinner to clear the air, I countered with a meeting at Brickstone Cafe. Bright lights, public setting witnesses within earshot. They couldn't twist or shout me into silence there. I rehearsed in my head over and over. Calm entrance. Portfolio placed on the table. Let them speak first. Then the reveal, piece by piece, each proof dropped like a hammer until the facade cracked. Still, I prepared for risks. If Dad dismissed the evidence, I had Julian's written statement. If Maddie claimed innocence, I had signatures and timestamps. If Mom played the guilt card, I had the ledger showing every free treatment I'd quietly provided. I pictured every possible angle. If they stormed out, I'd follow with a letter drafted by Patel. If they raised their voices, I'd keep mine even lower, forcing them to flail against my calm. The briefcase itself became my talisman. Every night I'd open it, shuffle the papers into order, snap it shut again. The click echoed like a gun cocking. It reminded me I wasn't defenseless anymore. For years I'd been the quiet daughter, the shadow behind Maddie's spotlight. Now for the first time I had leverage, not loud, not cruel, but undeniable. I whispered the words to myself like a vow. I won't raise my voice. I won't need to. Brickstone Cafe smelled of roasted beans and fresh bread when I walked in that afternoon. I chose a corner table with clear sightlines to both doors, my leather briefcase on the chair beside me. The air buzzed with low chatter and clinking mugs, neutral noise that felt like armor. I didn't wait long. The bell over the door chimed, and there they were. Dad in his pressed golf polo, Mom fidgeting with her pearl necklace, Maddie striding ahead with her practiced smile. They looked like they'd coordinated outfits in muted beige as if color could project unity. Sweetheart Mom said, reaching to hug me. I stayed seated, forcing her to stoop awkwardly for a pat on my shoulder. Dad took the chair across from me, Maddie sliding in beside him. "This is cozy," Dad said, "but family matters should be discussed at home." I placed my briefcase on the table and clicked it open. "This isn't just a family matter, it's my business." Maddie leaned forward, voice syrupy. "We brought muffins from that bakery you love. Thought it'd lighten the mood." She pushed the paper bag toward me, but I didn't touch it. The waitress came, scribbled their coffee orders, and left. The silence that followed thickened like wet wool. Dad finally spoke his tone, that same deep command he used when I was 17 and late for curfew. "Blood is thicker than water. Family stands together, especially in business." Mom reached across, squeezing my wrist. "We've always been proud of you, Elena, always. But Maddie can help carry the load. You don't need to do this alone." I looked at my sister. Her smile was tight eyes gleaming. She slid a tablet from her purse. "I've drafted a new proposal, less intrusive. A consulting role. Just 3 days a week. Social media presence, corporate outreach, 20% share." I let the words hang before answering. Slowly, I unzipped the inner pouch of my briefcase and drew out a folder. "Before we discuss proposals, you should see this." I slid the first page across a printout of Mom's Facebook post, so proud of our family business. Beneath it, the comments time-stamped. Mom's cheeks colored. That was just expression, pride. I placed the next page an email from Dr. Whitmore describing Dad's call about partnership opportunities. Dad's jaw tightened. "I never." "You did," I cut in quietly. My voice was soft enough that they had to lean closer. "And I have witnesses." Maddie crossed her arms. "You've been watching us. Like we're the enemy." I ignored her. From another sleeve, I pulled the loan document Renew Motion Therapy listed as borrower signature scrawled in Maddie's handwriting. The color drained from her face. That's not, it is, I said, sliding the accountant's report beside it. $42,000 in free treatments provided to this family, while I slept on treatment tables to cover my own rent. The cafe around us carried on. Steam hissed from the espresso machine. A spoon clinked in a glass. Our little corner, though, had gone utterly still. Dad shifted, attempting his old businessman's tone. We can negotiate. 20% a trial run. Family should profit together. I pulled out one last document, sliding it neatly on top of the stack. Clause 4.3, Colorado Health Partners Management Agreement. No family members in management without unanimous board approval. The board is me and 2 corporate partners. Your plan was dead the moment I signed this. Dad froze, eyes locking on the highlighted line. Mom's hand slipped from my wrist. Maddie's mouth opened, then shut again. You did this on purpose, she hissed. I made a business decision, I said. My tone was even colder than I intended, one based on experience. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then Dad leaned back, lips pressed thin. You've changed. Success has made you cold. No, I said. Success has made me visible, and you don't know what to do with a daughter you can't ignore. I closed my portfolio with a decisive snap. The sound cut through their silence sharper than any shout. This is the boundary, I said. My business is mine. Future treatments for family will be billed at standard rates, and there will be no more talk of partnerships, ownership, or profit shares. Mom's eyes filled with tears, but for once I didn't rush to comfort her. Maddie stared at the papers, face flushed with something between rage and humiliation. The waitress returned with their coffees. None of them touched the cups. I left a $5 bill on the table for mine, stood, and lifted the briefcase. It felt lighter than it had in months. As I walked toward the door, I could feel their eyes drilling into my back, but I didn't turn. For the first time, I was leaving on my terms. The fallout came fast. Within a week, whispers spread through the community. At Bridge Club, neighbors asked my mother why she'd called the clinic a family business when the truth was out. My father's golfing buddies repeated what they'd heard, that Richard Carter had tried to muscle into his daughter's success and failed. Maddie stopped posting for a while, her endless selfies replaced by silence. At the clinic, things steadied. Patients who'd overheard fragments at Brickstone Cafe told me quietly, "Good for you." My staff rallied closer, their loyalty deepened by watching me stand firm. One evening, a letter arrived in my mailbox, my father's handwriting on the envelope. I didn't open it. Instead, I slid it into a drawer with the others. If they wanted to talk, it would be through Patel now. I wrote a single email to all 3 of them, my words calm and precise. Any future discussions regarding Renew Motion Therapy must go through my attorney. All treatments for family will be billed at standard rates. Personal contact will be considered only if professional boundaries are respected. Then I hit send. For the first time in decades, my chest didn't feel tight. My hands didn't shake. I wasn't their scapegoat or safety net anymore. I wasn't available for that version of family, and I never would be again. 1 year later, the clinic hummed with energy, 15 therapists, a waiting list months long, and a scholarship fund for students like me who once scraped by. On a quiet morning, I stood in my office, sunlight spilling across the old leather portfolio still resting on my shelf. The documents inside had long since been archived, but I kept it as a reminder I wasn't invisible anymore. Outside my door, laughter from staff and patients filled the air. This was my chosen family built on respect, not obligation. For the first time, peace felt permanent. Family isn't defined by blood, it's defined by respect and boundaries. What would you have done if your own family tried to claim your success? Share your thoughts in the comments. And if you've ever stood your ground against betrayal, subscribe so you won't miss the next story.